Hello and welcome everybody to New Earth Consciousness. Tani here with Andrea Lange, and I'm excited to welcome her on this show. We're going to dive into her modality, which is called the Heart Healing Process, and also, just talk about these different wounds that women carry and how she works and helping women move through those wounds back into thriving. But before we start, I just want to let everybody know that you can find her at andrealangecoaching.com, and you have a mini program that is going to be coming up. She doesn't have it named yet, but if you go to her website and imagine subscribe to her email list, you'll get info on that mini program, which is going to be free. And it's going to start, it'll happen between Christmas and New Year, so during that window. So that is something that's up and available for everybody here that's watching that wants to partake in that. And so I just want to open it up and say thank you, Andrea, for being here and for joining us. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah.
And there's so much to talk about, but I will start with the wounds that a lot of women are struggling with. And that definitely also reflects on the wounds that I used to struggle with before I found the heart healing process and I became a certified heart healer. My focus with the women that I work with is very often focused on healing the mother wound.
Mm.
That is a very deep wound. Obviously, a lot of women have the father wound as well, but because as daughters, we have our mother, we see her as our role model. So we're looking up to her, how she's navigating life, and based on how she treated us, how she protected us, and how she nurtured us or not, has a huge imprint in on every woman, how she navigates life as a child, as a teenager, and then as an adult. And very often these wounds that we experience as a child can be very small, but they can also be very deep and very traumatic. So some women think like, oh, I don't have any childhood wounds. I didn't have traumatic experiences like being hit or yelled at or having a parent who had any kind of addiction or a parent who died suddenly and or a parent that left and she felt abandoned. A lot of women believe they had a very beautiful childhood, but there's still things that happened when we were little that left wounds inside of us that still affect us today. And that can be intentional or unintentional from our mothers. And so I myself have done a lot of therapy in my 20s after I had like a burnout working in an advertising agency. I used to be a graphic designer and had a big career in Germany, then later moved to San Francisco and worked there also for magazine, became the art director of San Francisco magazine and so on. And the reason why I had a burnout, it was directly linked to my relationship to my mother and my difficulty of not being able to say, no, stop, this is too much. I need a break. I want more money, all these things. And so, yeah, I had a lot of issues that I was not able to resolve with therapy or other kinds of healing modalities until I finally found heart healing. Heart healing is still a fairly new modality. It's about 5 years old. So, it wasn't even available when I was in my 20s when I had this burnout. So, when I learned about it and when I experienced it for the first time and realized the shifts that are possible with the modality, because it's a multi-level modality. So let me tell you a little bit more about what it does. It is It's a journey. Heart healing is a journey that I take my clients on where they're closing their eyes. We're using a hypnosis to go on a very deep level, to go on a subconscious level, and we go on a journey into the heart.
Mm.
And what is different about heart healing is that we are not going on a journey and see what happens and see what shows up. It's always very focused on healing a specific wound. And the journey that I guide most clients the first time is the journey to heal the enoughness wound. Because this not feeling enough, not feeling good enough, not feeling pretty enough or smart enough or successful enough is a wound that almost everyone has or had at some point. If you worked on it, if you healed it, maybe it's a wound from the past. But so I'm guiding my clients into the body, into the heart, and there we are meeting with the younger version of themselves that has experienced this wound. And we're going to the root cause of this wound, and we're connecting with the person who created this wound back then. And it's not just healing the wound and, finding it, revealing it. It's healing it. It's releasing it energetically from your body. We're connecting with the higher self. It's getting very spiritual in the journey. And the goal of every session is to really release the anchors and the control and the influence that the old wound had on you all your life, to release that from your conscious, from your subconscious, from your energetic and spiritual levels. And that's why it's so powerful, because we're working on so many levels
Mhm.
at once in the session.
Mhm. Yeah, and so do you find, I mean, it sounds like it definitely goes beyond just your typical, therapy, counseling. Well, you mentioned it yourself. You
Mhm.
through all of that. Um, yeah, and so I'm curious, with the heart, does because the heart is such a, we've come to realize so many different things about the heart now, right? We were
Mhm.
told it's a pump and it's actually not a pump. It's vortex, it's, the way it's formed and it's a, it's very much putting out a pulse and it has its own intelligence, right? Separate from the brain. So I'm wondering if you could talk more about that, like why the heart, for example.
Yeah, because we even use it in our language that, oh, this person has a guarded heart, or I have to protect my heart. So what happens is, when we are children and we had a very bad experience, it can be with parents, it can also be at school, that something happened and everyone was laughing at you, or a teacher made you feel very embarrassed in front of the whole class. Then you put a protective layer around your heart, and you decide, for example, if you felt embarrassed in front of the class, that being in front of an audience, being seen in front of a group of people, is not safe. And you have a layer of protection around your heart, so that in case someone is ever making you feel this way again, that it can't hurt you so much. So, and that is one of the things that we're working on in the session, to heal and release these protective layers that are around the heart. And some people that had a very traumatic childhood and had very horrible experiences in the family life, in the situation, maybe where they were growing up, maybe they were surrounded with war or very extreme poverty. They have so many layers around them, their heart. It's almost like a armor, just to be able to navigate and deal with the very intense environment that they're growing up in. And the problem is having this very big wall or the armor around our body is that we are protecting ourselves so that bad things can come in, but we also can't really connect to people on a very deep and loving and open way because we always have to guard ourselves. So we might yearn later in life as an adult to have close, loving relationships, but because we have this armor around our heart, it's not even possible. And we might not even getting very close friendships or very close relationships because we are always on guard. We always have to protect ourselves. And so people are also not wanting to come so close to us. So it can feel very isolating. And then it's really up to us to work on softening these layers, releasing these layers, healing them, and eventually having a strong heart and an open heart without needing to protect ourselves, because the things that we are reacting to as an adult, these triggers, let's come back to the mothers. A lot of women that didn't have such great relationship to their mom, due to the mom always criticizing them, always comparing them to others, or never keeping their secrets, telling everything. Like I hear from women that their mom told everyone when they got their period for the first time, for example, which can be very hurtful for teenagers when that gets shared. So whatever relationship you have with your mom, a lot of women also had a narcissistic mom who was gaslighting them and manipulating them all the time. So then these women don't have very strong trust in themselves, trust in other people, and for sure not trust in their intuition,
Mm.
because they were always told whatever they think is not valid and right. So when we have these wounds that we had to protect as a girl, for example, with our mom, then yeah, we need to. I think I lost my thread there. I wanted to go somewhere, and then I got more into the mother wound and thinking about all the different ways how this can show up in small or bigger ways. Um,
Yeah, I'm curious. So the mother wound is definitely something that I've seen can impact a woman's life almost her whole life, really. And I'm curious in terms of this modality. Like you said, someone could spend years and years and years in therapy and never really heal that or find resolution with that. And I find that it seems to me that the real pain is that a woman, a child wants the mother to love her ultimately, right? A child wants to love, wants to belong. That is a human need. And when that child isn't able to get that from the mother, of course, that impacts them for the rest of their life. And so they're always kind of hoping that someday mother will love me back. And for some people, that never happens. It just never happens, and it's not going to happen, it's just for whatever reason. How how does how does one then come to peace with that, knowing, just for example, I had a client who was part of her desire was like, I want to be friends with my mother. And it's like, that's just never going to happen. Not really, not in the way that you would like for it to be, that sort of close, intimate relationship. Would you say that at best, in situations like that, where there's just no opening for there to be a resolve in this lifetime with the birth mother, she's and especially when it lasts until later in life and the mother is now in her 80s. Like she's hardwired. She's not gonna, more than likely, is not gonna change or suddenly be different just because you're working on yourself or you're, trying to become I don't know, more resilient and more accepting. How I'm just curious, where can a woman find herself after going through and say working through this healing the mother wound? What are some of the things that, where does she find herself then ultimately?
Mhm.
What would be considered like a successful resolution for something like that?
Well, a successful resolution and a successful result will be of her not getting triggered by her mom anymore,
Hmm.
because that is where the suffering is. That we are meeting our mom, or we're getting a text or a message, or we just hear her talk and the tone of her voice and we get triggered,
Hmm.
because that is connected to an experience that we had with our mom when we were little. And that really deeply hurt us. She didn't see us. She didn't support us. We couldn't trust her. Whatever it was, it is connected to something that happened in the past. And with heart healing, my clients are able to release the triggers, to not get triggered anymore, which is like life changing. And
Yeah.
this is what happened to me, because I thought, I don't know, this will never go away. I will always be triggered. I'm from Germany and I live close to San Francisco now. And I live here now since 25 years. And like me and a lot of my clients as well, I didn't know it for a long time, but at some point I realized there's a reason why I moved so far away. Um, every time I went back to Germany, I cried at least one time, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
not just a little bit, just crying
Yeah.
my eyes out, because again, she hit me so deep. And I felt like at a loss. I don't know when this will ever stop. And that was until I healed the wounds with heart healing on a very deep level. And what shifted for me was that the memories are still there. What happened in the past did not change, it's still there. But my relationship to that experience changed. And now the emotions are out of it. I can just look at it like at a photo album. Oh, yeah, there's that memory. It doesn't trigger me anymore, because that part inside of me and in my heart that got healed. And it was really amazing when I did all the heart healing during my training. I went to Europe a few weeks after I finished my training, and I worked on all five receiving wounds. And I can
Yeah.
soon tell you more about that. What are the receiving wounds? But it was very interesting. We went to Europe, met with my mom, celebrated her for her 80th birthday. You were just talking about what
Hmm.
happens when a mom is in her 80s and she's not changing anymore, because I waited for an apology my whole life. And it was so frustrating that it never came. And she didn't want to talk with me. I tried it so many times. And we had the celebration. We went to Mallorca, to a Spanish island we were there 9 nights. I'm like, oh my God, 10 days. Let's see if I will get triggered. And I didn't.
Mm.
I didn't get triggered. But what happened is, because I didn't have my guards up anymore, I have to protect myself. And what is when she says certain things again? My guards were gone and I could be just more loving with her. I actually have a much better relationship with my mom now. And this is not an isolated case. This is happening to a lot of people that are healing their mother wound with heart healing. And that's what happened to a lot of my clients. I have one client, and this client has a narcissistic mom, a very, very intense upbringing with alcoholism and so on. Really, a lot of neglect. This client basically just got food and shelter, but no love, no support, no nurturing at all.
Mhm.
And so when we did the first session, I think we both thought the mom will come up when we work on the enoughness wound, but it wasn't the mom that came up, it was someone else. And in with the heart healing process, because it is we're working on the subconscious level, we always trust that everyone's subconscious mind knows what to work on first, what is the most important thing we need to work on.
Mhm.
And we also trust that you never go into areas that you're not ready to go to. And in this session, we did not work on the mom, we worked on someone else, but this is what the client needed. And the amazing thing is that this session changed everything. The client got triggered by the mom anymore, even though we did not work on the mom,
Mm.
because there's very often other people that enable the behavior of the mom or whoever it is. And so that's just amazing. If you want to, I have it extra here. I can read you the testimonial from this
Yeah,
client.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, great. So this client was sharing with me, in record time, Andrea helped me untie a knot using the transformative heart healing process. I was really able to let go of things that had blocked me all my life. What heart healing has done to me is revolutionary. I no longer get triggered by my mother. Wow, this is sensational. The first session I had with Andrea was literally $1,000 worth.
Yeah.
And then I have another client that was like right in the beginning, after I was done with my training, one of my first clients, she said, this feels like deep work, deeper than every therapy session combined. And this is what I hear a lot, that it's so much deeper than the talk therapy, because I help people to really feel safe and be able to go very deep in the session. And one thing that I personally never like about talk therapy is that after 15 minutes, there's a hard stop, no matter where you are in the session. And this is not what I do with the heart healing journey. It
Mhm.
goes usually 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I help the client to go in deep, we go deep, and I help them to come back out and be in a safe space
Yeah.
and get ongoing support.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really interesting that um, it just seems to me now, really more than ever that talk therapy, it can only go so far. It has a limit, and yet, sorry, my cat is here. And
Oh,
yet,
hi, Kat.
oh, I'm going to zoom in here. And yet, people will spend years in therapy. It's like we've been, I don't know, just it seems to me that like academia has not caught up yet, still, with what actually works. Uh,
Mhm.
and yet still at the same time as well, people when they want to look for healing, they're looking for the licensure, oh, do you have a degree in psychology or psychotherapy or whatever. And what I find is that therapists who are true to their calling often find themselves in these other types of modalities, right? That actually, it just seems to me that the power of the subconscious is just so real. It's just has such a hold on us, and that, like what you're describing with the core heart healing, we have to go into those deeper levels in a safe way to rewire the brain, essentially. Um,
Yeah.
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 So I'd love to hear more about the receiving wounds because you
Mhm.
mentioned it, and I know that a lot of women have difficulty receiving,
Mhm.
whether it's abundance or love or even just compliments. We're always many women are very can be self-negating, pushing something away or no, that's not for me, or tell me, what are the receiving wounds? It sounds like the court heart or heart healing has kind of, summed it up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the five core receiving wounds are the enoughness wound that I mentioned earlier, not feeling enough, not feeling good enough, not feeling smart enough or successful enough. It's a big one, and a lot of women and men as well struggle with that. And that is usually like a 3 week journey that I do with my clients. And then the four other receiving wounds that are all kind of like interconnected with each other is the love wound, like this feeling like I'm unlovable, I can't love, no one loves me, struggling with love. And then the second is the trust wound, not being able to trust yourself or think that other people will not trust you for whatever reason. Then the worth wound. A lot of women feel not worthy. They are not valuing themselves. That's why they struggle with asking for more money or, in general, asking for what they want and need. And then the last one is the acceptance wound, not feeling accepted and struggling with then accepting others as well. And that's very deep, for
Yeah.
little girls that were not accepted for who they are, also very often not accepted for being a girl. Maybe there's a disappointment, the parent wanted a son, or you're the third girl and they really wanted a son.
Yeah.
And that is very painful when you have the feeling you were never accepted for who you are, the girl, and the personality who you are.
Right. Yeah. And so do you find, is there any particular wound that you find that comes up more than others?
No, because they all come up.
They all
and
come
and
up.
like I said, they're all interconnected. That's why when I work with client on these wounds, these are not separate single sessions you can do. It's a bigger journey. It's a 3 months journey because we all have them
Yeah.
more or less. And then the journey is structured around identifying what do you think is the biggest wound. So in the first session, we just talk about the intake form. The client goes through a lot of questions, and that's where the therapeutic process already starts. And they're getting more in touch with what happened when they were little, what's still bothering them, how does it show up today. And so then we identify what their biggest wound is, and that's where we start. But I cannot say that there is a biggest wound.
Yeah. And so, so you mentioned that before we got on here, there's the core heart healing, and then from there, you might go into the ancestral, like anything that you've inherited from your ancestors, your family lineage, and then even past lives.
Yes.
I'm curious, do you have any interesting stories or examples about that?
Yeah, so the ancestral wounds, it's again, we're having four wounds there. um it's again not like, oh, let's see what shows up in our ancestors. It's a very directed journey, especially the ancestral heart healing journey is where we are first having to connect to our ancestral guides, because these are very deep journeys and we need a lot of protection in that session when we go in. And with that ancestral guide, someone in your ancestral line, it can be your grandfather, it can be someone before Christmas, yeah, before Christ, before he was born, it can be in the medieval time. We never know who is our protective guides in our lineage. And then we are working on four different wounds, and that's like we can have separate sessions there. It does not need to be all done in a big package.
Yeah.
The wounds are the peace wound, and obviously we know over I don't know, since we have civilizations or even tribal times, there were always wars. So
Yeah.
there's a big wound around peace, not finding peace in ourselves, that still relates to us today. And that got passed down through our lineage to us. We have the peace wound, we have the overflow wounds, because most of us have never really experienced overflow. We have experienced scarcity, never having enough, basically, and struggling with that. Then there's the freedom wound, that we've never really experienced freedoms, that we were always suppressed in all kinds of various ways, also as slaves, or just like having no power, always having a landowner over us, or as women, always being suppressed through all our ancestor line. And then there's the safety wound, where we just never felt really safe and secure.
Yeah.
Um, these are the four universal ancestral wounds. And it's the same as the past life wounds. So the ancestral wounds is, in the session we are connecting with an ancestor. And these sessions also work for people that think like, oh, I don't believe in this. This is like, I'm not sure, this is totally out of my comfort zone. I don't think that something will show up for me. I'm not very visual. I cannot see things. It works when we go into session and I guide people into the session. They can sense things, they can feel things, and they all of a sudden have an image or have a description of one of their ancestors that shows up, that represents this wound. And then we work on that, and we work on the situation or the person that made them feel this way, never safe, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then, I mean, obviously this changes the energetics of the person, right? Their energy that they're holding in their body and how they're showing up in the world and who they're being. I imagine that there's a space that opens up in their being. It's almost they have more access to who they really are and what they came to do in this life on this planet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because these things from our ancestors can totally block us in this life, and sometimes it's also in the session we realize, oh my God, my family has done it all the time. They talked about a topic in a certain way. Or, for example, I'm from Germany. I grew up with this major guilt being German and what happened in Germany in the past. And yeah, it just had a huge impact on me and who I became. And so when we have connecting with ancestors that had very traumatic experiences hundreds of years ago, it still affects us through the DNA and who we sense we are.
Yeah.
It's for example, at some point in the San Francisco Bay Area, once a year there's like a flight show of like military planes, the Blue Angels it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And when my kids were still little, we were in Sausalito at the Children Museum, and all of a sudden there were these planes flying over us and practicing for the show that happened the next day. And my whole body froze, and I just get goosebumps just thinking about it. And my only thought was, where are the bunkers I have to run?
Mm.
Just thinking about it makes me emotional. It's
Yeah.
so deep in my DNA. This
Yeah.
is what my ancestors experienced. My parents were little kids during the Second World War. And it got passed down to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate these flight shows. I never go.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
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 So yeah, there's so much more that impact us today than we were told. You know, we all grew up with our life is what we see, what we learn, what we hear, using our senses and what they tell us on TV and at school and so on, that got passed down. But nowadays we know there is so much more to us. there's so much more information, and there's also so many more ways to heal things that are blocking us today in really becoming the empowered and thriving woman and also person. I know you probably have a lot of male viewer here as well, even though I'm focused on women. I just want to also share that I work with men as well. It's just not my focus for marketing and, talking about my work.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, it's the way forward is just breaking those patterns, whether they're from your family of origin or beyond that, even into the ancestry or even past lives. Yeah, it's like the more, I mean, it really, for there for it to manifest, the new earth, let's say, or heaven on earth, or whatever, however you want to call it. It's really like, really, it boils down to that you are the answer. Like you are the one. You are the one that we've been waiting for, right? And so when we
Yes.
can really reclaim our soul, our light, our divinity, then we become a part of the solution. Yeah. So really embracing who we are, and I will say too that I think that trauma is in a way, in a certain way, can be a gift because it's what we survive and move through is what creates this greater capacity within us to hold more, and to, whether that's for ourselves or for others or for our community. I just find that when it can be a tricky path to go down when we compare our lives to other people's lives that seem to have it all, right? That
Mm.
seem to have the picture perfect life. Of course, we never know what that actually truly is, but we can tend to think like, oh, well, I've been through trauma, or I have this
Mhm.
mother wound, or I have this or that. That just means I'm not meant for love. I'm not meant to have. I'm too broken, or I'm too this or that. And that's really just a lie. It's like that, you know, um, I don't know if it was Rumi or what that said it's the, um, it's through the dark that we find the light.
Yes.
It's in that crack where our deepest wounds is actually where the greatest light is. And so I would just say, like, if someone is carrying trauma, or having these triggers, whatever, it's like that's where the gold is. You have to just know. And so this is, your work. It's creating that safe passageway into that, so that you can discover, oh, here's the light of the situation. Here's the truth. Here's the discovery, and that is what actually liberates us. And so it's really
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The overall goal with my work is always to help my clients to come back to wholeness. We can have all these fragmented parts and all these wounds that happened at some point, and healing these wounds and pulling our energy back to ourselves and to, yeah, create this feeling of empowerment. I'm always coming back to the word empowerment because I also call myself an self-empowerment doula, helping women not to birth their child, not being a death doula, helping them to leave this world in a safe way, but helping women to transition into the most empowered version of themselves.
I love
And
that.
that
Yeah.
And that really starts with healing your heart, healing the wounds from this life. And then the next level is healing the ancestral wounds and healing the past life wounds. I want to quick share the 4 universal past life wounds as well, which are the persecution wound, the power wound, the promise wound, being promised something, and the prodigy wound, because in past lives sometimes we were an assistant and we were suppressed. We did not get the recognition
Mm.
that we were supposed to get. I had a very intense session around that as well, being like a young male, because when you go back into past lives, you're not always a woman, you're very often a man. It's like 50-50% who, what gender you might have been in the past. And I was a young man working for a professor, being very brilliant but very shy and coming from a poor background. And this professor used my work to publish my work basically, but never mentions me.
Yeah.
And so in that kind of like had something to do with my life now too, always kind of like being a bit shy and being quieter and holding myself back, letting other people shine and so on.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful. But I wanted to come back to the persecution wound, because the persecution wound we also call the witch wound. And that is obviously especially important for women and for healers, because very often we are holding ourselves back to show our talents and our gifts because of this old fear, basically, to really show ourselves, to show our gifts, to show our spirituality, show and share how much we are trusting our intuition. Because as we know, the church always tried to make us believe that the power is outside of ourselves. It's the man on the cloud, it's Jesus. And for women to come back to themselves and realizing that the power is inside of them, when they are able to trust themselves, they are most powerful. And this is what a lot of men find threatening, unfortunately. And so this is also what I'm focusing on this mini program that I will do between Christmas and New Year's Eve. It's around the witch wound and helping women to come back to trusting themselves and feeling comfortable to being seen and being more visible with the empowered version of themselves without holding back, to empower more women and men as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Amazing. Um, yeah, so is there anything before we close, anything more you would like to share or a message that you'd like to share with the audience? Sorry. That's
What a timing.
no, it's my text. Somebody's texting me and I don't
Okay.
know how to turn them off, but anyway.
So first of all, I want to share a gift for everyone if they're interested in receiving it. And that is an healing activation audio. It's called Safe to Be Me, which is just a very powerful journey to come back to yourself and trusting yourself more. I would love to share that. But my closing message to every woman and also man is to know that you are loved more than you ever imagined, and that you can trust that you are whole inside, and it's safe for you to heal the deeper layers that you haven't been able to heal yet, and that you are more than enough.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrea. This has been really, really just a beautiful talk, and thank you so much for, yeah, what you do in the world. And it's obviously, really powerful work. And thank you for being here and sharing with us your gifts.
Thank you for having me. It was really wonderful to share
Yeah,
all the things that I have to
yeah.
share. Thanks.
Amazing. Beautiful work. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. All right. Bye for now, everyone.